On Sunday, I mentioned that the book of Habakkuk is much like a beautiful and powerful worship service, a liturgy, perhaps. It contains scenes of high drama, scenes of intense poetry, probably set to music, and scenes of earnest, worshipful prayer and adoration. The study tonight will no doubt be something a little bit different from the ordinary, but I'd like to walk through the structure and form of this short 3-chapter book to get a sense of how a Jew in Old Testament times might have experienced the message. In fact, how a Jew in Old Testament times might have learned or even memorized this important message. First, we can simply divide the book into 5 sections. Here are the 5. The first section is chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, Habakkuk's first appeal to God, in which he raised those questions in anguish. Why? And how long? Questions based on the misbehavior of the Jews. The second section, chapter 1, verses 5 through 11, is God's response to Habakkuk, in which he assures Habakkuk that he, God, has a plan to raise up the Chaldeans, or the Babylonians, to discipline the Jews. Third, chapter 1, verse 12 through chapter 2, verse 1. This is Habakkuk's second appeal to God, in which he expressed even more anguish because the Chaldeans, the ones that God used in his plan, the Chaldeans were even more evil than the Jews. Then the fourth section would be chapter 2, verses 2 through 20, God's second response to Habakkuk, in which he assures Habakkuk that he, God, will deal with the Chaldeans because of their evil in no uncertain terms. He says, trust me. Chapter 3 is the 5th scene or section in this book. It's Habakkuk's wonderful prayer of trust in God, in which he makes a complete transition from lament to praise, from anguish to reverence and trust. This final scene reaches its climax when Habakkuk firmly declares, "The Lord is my strength." So we have the 5 sections. In my mind, I envision the first 3 scenes, Habakkuk's first appeal to God and God's first response, and then Habakkuk's second appeal to God. I envision those first 3 scenes as a powerful and dramatic dialogue between Habakkuk and God, and we have the best seats in the house to observe it. But the 4th and 5th scenes take an even more dramatic turn. The 4th scene, God's second response, in which he spells out how he will deal with the Chaldeans. You'll remember perhaps the 5 woes that we explored a few weeks ago. In essence, he spells out the end of the Chaldeans' dominance. But the woes are presented in poetic form. There are 5 stanzas. Each stanza is 3 verses long, like a poem. But check this out. The 1st and 4th woes include what might be a chorus or a refrain. The first woe ends at chapter 2, verse 8. Let me read that for you. Because you have plundered many nations, all the remnant of the people shall plunder you. Because of men's blood and the violence of the land and the city and of all who dwell in it. Then the fourth woe ends at chapter 2, verse 17. Let me read that for us. For the violence done to Lebanon will cover you, and the plunder of beasts which made them afraid, because of men's blood and the violence of the land and the city, and of all who dwell in it. Do you see the repetition there? Because of men's blood and the violence of the land and the city, and of all who dwell in it. Now remember, this is during those 5 woes that God is speaking to Habakkuk in prophetic terms that are going to be brought on the Chaldeans or Babylonians. And as these 5 woes, this sort of poem is being delivered with the different stanzas and then the different verses, we have this repetition, what very well could be a chorus. It's quite possible that this 4th poetic section, the 5 woes, was a sad, melancholy, mournful piece of music, something like a dirge. And at least the chorus was probably sung, either by a choir or perhaps by the entire congregation during a time of worshiping God. Now, this isn't the only part of the book that was probably put to music. Next week, we'll look at chapter 3 and try to imagine how the presence of God filled the temple when his people gave him praise during the 5th scene, the grand finale.